Welcome back to the Postscript, the podcast about film. The discourse ended with an ellipsis rather than a period. I'm Chris Hall.
I'm Sebastian.
And this is Mateo.
And on this podcast, we will be reassessing films of recent memory where the discourse was left unsettled. We will try to provide more definitive takes on films that generated a lot of buzz upon release, but their reputations have since become murky, or maybe they've just fallen through the cracks altogether. Movies that make you ask, where are they now? Last week, we discussed Ridley Scott's Alien prequel duology of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, where we pretty unanimously gushed over them and deemed them vastly underappreciated. And even with any bumps they may have, Michael Fassbender's performance as David transcends and elevates the entire project into something deeply memorable. This week, we will be covering the second film in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Dead Man's Chest, and we will be joined by our good friend and also a fellow former University Film Society president, so royalty in the Zoom, Chance Freytag, who's also now attending FCU's graduate film program. Chance, thanks for being here, King.
I would never say no to this invitation. This is kind of my dream. I've been waiting for this for years. I mean, now there are now 3 presidents in the chat, and Mateo is just kind of being tossed to the wayside.
Come on.
Former cabinet member Mateo.
Not true. You were never on the board.
Well, never on the board, but like the unofficial cabinet, like the Tom Hagen of UFS. Conciliary Mateo.
The eminence grise.
What is it that has Jack spooked? How much do you know about Davy Jones? You owe me your soul. And it's time to pay up. If there was anything could be done, well, there is a chest. The dead man's chest.
To find it, you must sail to the end of the earth and beyond.
We have our heading.
The first thing I noticed when researching this movie for the pre-watch was that while Wikipedia typically has like pretty, it'll pretty succinctly convey the premise of a selected film, like this has far and away the longest plot log line for any film I've ever seen on that site. Like obviously, I'm just gonna read the whole thing directly from it.
Oh my god!
Set 1 year after the events of The Curse of the Black Pearl, the film recounts Captain Jack Sparrow owing a debt to Davy Jones, played by Bill Nighy, the ghastly captain of the Flying Dutchman, and is marked for death and pursued by the Kraken. I mean, that alone, I'm in. But the thing is, this thing was 2 meaty compound sentences. It continues to say
that's all they needed, really.
I was gonna say that's an entire movie. Meanwhile, the wedding of Will Turner, played by Orlando Bloom, and Elizabeth Swann, Keira Knightley, is interrupted by Lord Cutler Beckett, who wants Turner to acquire Jack's magic compass in a bid to find the dead man's chest. I mean, I am vibrating right now. Like that is,
we're so up.
We
should be. It's at this point that you should start getting like little tangential memories of this from childhood. Like you hear that and you go, oh shit!
Synapses are just firing right now. And so, okay, so this should be a relatively simple setting of the table for why we've chosen this to cover this film, because so the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, The Curse of the Black Pearl, in every sense is like a true classic of a 21st century blockbuster, right? I mean, it like pretty immediately joined the ranks of movies that are way better than they have any right to be, considering it was just like a ride at Disney World. Like it immediately gained respect, and it made people almost forget about that. Not forget about that tidbit, but like forget how weird the origins of that film are. And it possessed like an iconic Academy Award nominated lead performance with Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, memorable set pieces, like an utterly timeless and still like ever present score and theme from Hans Zimmer. Like we all know it. Like you actually, when you're like born, like in the nursery, they're just playing that on repeat just to get it locked in.
Let's not forget the contributions of Klaus Badelt to that.
Klaus Badelt.
Everyone attributes this to Hans Zimmer.
Whoa. The first film I think is only Klaus Badelt credited.
Are you serious?
Yeah. No, Hans Zimmer comes in on Dead Man's Chest.
Wow.
Klaus Badelt literally getting his valor stolen right now.
Yeah, us literally got buried.
I am responsible. I am like there's blood on my I'm a part of this crime now. I relinquish my duties as host. No, that's like it's like the 19 microphones on Hans Zimmer and like the angry guy pouting in the corner like that's just Klaus. Wow, that's crazy. Okay, so Curse of the Black Pearl, again, it was like pretty like beloved by audiences, really respected by critics, and on a $140 million budget, made $654 million. So again, huge success. Naturally, 3 years later, we get its sequel, Dead Man's Chest, which critics were much more mixed on, and audiences a little more lukewarm towards. But I want to say, like when I was researching for this movie, I realized I had severely underestimated how much juice this franchise had. After that
you
first
forgot
movie
real
alone,
bad, didn't you? You just saw that number and you lost your goddamn mind.
I saw the box office number and I almost fell over because Curse of the Black Pearl made $650 million really good. Dead Man's Chest. Seth, Mateo, I don't know if you guys remembered this. That movie made over $1 billion. What 1.066 to be exact.
Yeah.
They're in the one bill club
and made the bill club.
Oh yeah,
and that's
in $2006.
That's 06.
No,
money
for
right
real.
There. And the thing is that with each consequent film in the franchise, of which there are now 5, the films have been like less and less well received, but they still make absurd amounts of money. Like On Stranger Tides also crossed the $1 billion threreshold.
No freaking way.
I'm so serious. And Pirates 5, which everybody and their mothers agreed was just like absolute cheeks, 800 mil. Just an easy 800 mil. Like I forgot this was one of the most like bulletproof franchises we have.
Yeah, like borderline Transformers money.
On that Transformers money. That being said, there's already some kind of reclamation of the pirate sequels going on, namely just the Gore Verbinski ones, and he's the man who helmed the first 3 Pirates films. The third, At World's End, we will certainly cover at some point, but we'll get there when we get there. And so that's the thing is as we've delved deeper into an era of like increasingly like slipshod, corner cutting, like unconvincing CGI in our modern blockbusters. As a result of just like a lack of vision and intention, and thus VFX artists being overworked, there's been a newfound appreciation for like what films like these Pirates films accomplish visually. And like once a month for the past 3 years, I'll see someone online post like a close up like high res still of Davy Jones from Dead Man's Chest and like a largely CGI character and be like, man, this was 06. Look how far we've fallen, and just to like remind and like post it side by side with like a Quantum Mania still or something. And the thing is, it's also starting to go beyond just like missing the days of crisper CGI, because like I mean, in the last 2 months, there's been like a meme started of people like tearfully reminiscing upon the big wheel scene from Dead Man's Chest, which we will get to. The big wheel scene will get its own segment, and like that's funny, but it's also just like a symptom of this like ever-growing like nostalgia of blockbusters, just like how blockbusters like used to feel so much more grand, like in the way they used to provide like true like spectacle, And so like for instance, Dead Man's Chest had a budget of $225 million, a budget that even though that's more commonplace nowadays, back in 06, less common. That's a lot of money for an 06 budget right there. And the thing is that that's these true. Pirates movies, and I can tell this just by watching the clips on my phones, for lack of better phrasing, felt and looked as expensive and grand as their budgets, like they really use that money like to the full extent, because the bleak reality nowadays is that a larger budget often just means more CGI as opposed to like more like true spectacle and something awe-inspiring, So that being said, I want to throw it to Chance, because while I'm sure you agree with a lot of what I just said, you hold Dead Man's Chest with a lot more reverence than just like, oh, like this was a blockbuster that's more well made than we think. You've been in the trenches with this one.
Oh yeah, I've been here for years, and I guess like I'm about to really go on a tangent. My tale of 2 movies here.
Go for it,
because I'm gonna start with the way this movie got made. Because I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going all the way back to Curse of the Black Pearl. We're going back to the front, which is that this movie had been in development for over a decade before it actually hit screens. Gore Verbinski wasn't attached until right before they started shooting, really. Ooh. And the only reason the movie got made in the first place is because Gore Verbinski and Jerry Bruckheimer like pushed it through the Disney system. They had to like put it in front of Michael Eisner. They had to go, listen, your competition is spending $150 million on Lord of the Rings, on The Matrix, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the big problem with everyone had with the production was that the screenplay was like just absolute dog ass. It had like 7 or 8 screenwriters. Stuart Beatty of Collateral fame was attached at one point. He did multiple drafts.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to the final draft of the script until Elliott and Rossio, who did Aladdin, who did Zorro, who did all these other movies in the 90s, got their hands on it. Of course, they ended up doing the next 2 movies after it. But you get on set with the script. Verbinski reads it. They're looking for like a sort of Burt Lancaster type to do Jack Sparrow. So Burt Lancaster did a lot of swashbucklers back in the day. It's like Crimson Pirate, Flame in the Arrow, all of these movies in the 40s and 50s. And he was sort of this like stoic but kind of goofy guy. And then all of a sudden you have Johnny Depp doing the Keith Richards impression, and Gore Verbinski said, we need to change the entire movie now. And so while they're like on location shooting in St. Vincent, the whole movie just starts getting rearranged. So all of a sudden you have this like the beginning of this tug of war between Elliott and Rossio and Gore Verbinski. And then you move on to the sequels. And Elliott and Rossio start getting very, very protective over the mythology they're building and the story they're building for these movies. But Disney wants to go ahead and make the movie. So does Gore Verbinski. And the way Elliott and Rossio decide to protect their screenplay is by not sharing drafts with anyone. No one is seeing the scripts. They're writing
pulling to George Lucas.
Right, and they won't tell anyone what's happening. And so obviously it doesn't work for them, and Gore Verbinski starts prepping scenes without them. He is storyboarding entire sections of the film. He is changing things on the fly. They write the crew of the Flying Dutchman as ghosts. He's like, no, these are sea creatures. He changes it. He goes to the visual effects guys, designs their entire look without consulting the writers at all.
Whoa.
And of course, our beloved big wheel scene, like this beautiful, wonderful thing that we all know and enjoy.
Yeah.
He just came up with that. He's like, this would be cool. Storyboarded it, planned it with the stunt team, did all of this stuff before there's even a place for it in the screenplay.
That's amazing.
He just starts doing all of this stuff on his own. They start shooting without a finished script. Elliott and Rossio are on set filling shit in as they go, just like writing out dialogue, throwing in scenes, trying to keep up with Verbinski. This keeps going throughout the back-to-back shoot of Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, which are shot straight through Lord of the Rings style.
That's
really
right. Yeah.
And the entire time, it's Elliott and Rossio trying to write dialogue to throw at Gore Verbinski's set pieces that he's just building like out of thin air.
That's amazing. Having a mutiny within the pirate movie development is
it's so beautiful. I think
perfect.
It's perfect. Like it's but at the same time, it's not a lot of tension, right? Like they're working together pretty well. The movies are getting made. And Verbinski, by this point, is an extremely experienced filmmaker, not only with action, but also with special effects, because he's coming off of Mouse Hunt, The Ring, The Mexican, his earlier movies, which are also really good, and you should watch them. But Mouse Hunt especially, it's a great Thanksgiving movie.
You're a big Mouse Hunt guy. Yeah.
I am a big Mouse Hunt guy. But anyways, these movies get made. They're making money, and so they're like letting Gore Verbinski do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, I would like to make the direct comparison before we go in that this is also the way Mad Max Fury Road was made. Storyboards first, dialogue later. And while Dead Man's Chest is certainly a lot more dialogue heavy film, the sort of similarities between the Gore Verbinski style of like, action reaction set pieces is almost identical to the sort of Mad Max Fury Road, like falling dominoes style of like spatial orientation and action and all of these things. The movie is literally built to be followed visually. And what you end up with is something that I will say ends up somewhere between Mad Max Fury Road and Burn After Reading. I don't think it quite reaches the heights of either of those movies, but the fact that anything can exist in that space between them
in that Venn diagram,
wonderful. I love that.
It's high bar.
It is a Venn diagram with one thing in between them. And that's Dead Man's Chest. And the other story is my own journey with this film.
Yes.
Which is that I saw it when it came out when I was like a baby. I was a little guy who loved pirates and was starting to develop this like taste for movies where it's like, I really like when things are gross. I like when there's gore. I like when body parts come off. And if you remember anything about these movies, they have really creative, like fucked up gore effects. Like they can't show like human bodies being dismembered, but once they get to like the Davy Jones crew and shit, like heads are coming off, limbs are coming off, hands are crawling across the floor.
Oh, I can't wait.
There's like the Evil Dead style scene in the first one.
Yeah.
Where Jonathan Pryce is in the cabin and he's like fighting a hand.
The skeletal hand is crawling at him.
Exactly. No, incredible stuff. And like I'm figuring this out. And like as a kid, I didn't know who Gore Verbinski was. My favorite movies, if you asked me in 2013 what my 3 favorite movies were, I would say Dead Man's Chest, Rango, and The Lone Ranger, and I had no idea the same guy made them. And so like I was like my trajectory here is like this like deep and pure appreciation for this very specific style of filmmaking and like this sort of semi-surreal, darkly comic Verbinski style. But I hadn't seen them, I'd say 2013, 2012 was probably the last time I watched those movies. And like going into my adulthood, the only thing I remembered about Pirates movies vividly was when I saw Dead Men Tell No Tales in theaters, which is truly god awful. Like as a kid, my favorite character was like Barbossa. And if you remember Dead Men Tell No Tales, that movie butchers Barbossa's character. Jeffrey Rush is just like literally phoning it in the whole time. That movie is an atrocity. But the way I got to where I am now, where I'm going like, it's like the Coen brothers and George Miller made a blockbuster.
Right.
It's when I started college. Like I got my freshman year of college, COVID's going on. I can't really do anything.
Yeah.
And I go into Best Buy and they have a Blu-ray set of the first 3 Pirates movies. And I go, sure, why not? I drop like $40 on it. I go home and I rewatch them all in one day.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm telling everybody, so like Dead Man's Chest is kind of like the best movie ever made. Sort of. I'm like, you don't really remember what it's about, do you? You don't remember all like the Freudian subtext. You don't remember this movie's commentary on like capitalism, blah, 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 blah. You don't remember shit. Because not only is this movie like incredibly well conceived on like a visual and spatial level.
Yeah.
The ideas that it's choosing to play with are insane. Everything that Elliot and Rossio wrote into that script is like clinically insane. The movie is like mostly about like sex and money.
Well, I mean, which is, I guess, pirates to the core.
It's a pirate movie, right? Like,
it's a pirate
that's what they should be about.
But like, it's what it should be about. But no one remembers that the villain is the Dutch East India Company, the real Dutch East India Company from like reality that like killed thousands upon thousands of people for money.
Yeah.
Like the actual expansion of capital in real life. It's like the villain of this movie.
I can tell you that was forgotten. I will tell you that.
Much. Honestly, that's crazy.
That both on like on a directorial sense and like a theme and story sense, just like it seems like they just had carte blanche. Like they could just do, well, especially after the first, they could do whatever they wanted. Yeah.
They could do anything. These were like the most expensive movies ever made up to this point.
Yes.
Dead Man's Chest and At World's End had like insane budgets, and they were just letting them do whatever they wanted because they wanted to get these movies out as fast as possible, and quality control wasn't an issue. And so you end up with shit like, let's just get Chow Yun-fat in the third movie, like the biggest star in Hong Kong, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's like, he'll just be in the next one for like 20 minutes. Keith Richards is also there.
Just calling in
riggers. They're doing everything they want.
Yeah. Chance, thank you so much for very like eloquently just detailing that lore and just like the making of this film. Like that is so like utterly fascinating. Like I am
very helpful.
This like I am like the lens I'm viewing through this movie just got like completely like shifted going in. Like it's not just like, it's so much more than just like, like this movie did have good CGI. It's like, no, this is one of the most bonkers blockbusters and like a true how is this real? Like and that's where the most like fascinating stuff comes from, is when you're just like, wow, like they let these guys like there were no producers on set. Like they just let these guys just go free reign. Like
there was a producer on set, and his name was Jerry Bruckheimer. And I'll tell you what he was doing. a lot of cocaine. He went to the Robert Evans School of Producing.
I love how unhinged this production was.
No, this is unbelievable. And that's so fitting. Like, I am, in terms of our memories with these films, I have not, like, I think the last time I watched these Pirates movies, like, again, I'm hyper familiar with the first, like many people are, like, I've seen that one many times. But as for like 2 and 3, the last time I watched those was during, like, I think it was like a Pirates of the Caribbean marathon on like Disney XD like 12 years ago. Like, it's like, in all the meaningful ways, this will feel like a first watch. Again, I remember Dead Man said this is the Jar of Dirt movie, right?
Oh, this is the Jar of Dirt.
This is the Jar of Dirt
yeah.
movie. Again, I remember that. I remember, again, without, I mean, I guess, like, we probably don't have to avoid spoilers on this pregame, but just in case, I remember the ending of this film just, like, rocking my world when I was a kid. Because I remember my brother and I both were like, "You can do that? Like, this is like, that's like, did they just do that?" Yeah. Which is like electrifying. But that's it. Like, that's all I remember from this film. And so I am like, again, like, knowing just the sublime chaos from which it was made. And again, it's so, like, it's so exciting when it's just knowing that, like, you're watching something that, like, people, like, they were allowed to cook on. Because sometimes it can throw a wet blanket on a film or a project, knowing that, like, it's like, okay, it's like, I've heard it's good, but, like, I also heard, like, they kind of have, like, one hand tied behind their back, or it's just like, you're gonna kind of have to, like, pick and choose what the, like, the authorial stuff in this movie are. But, like, this sounds like this was just a like a
no hands tied,
just a buffet. So, I mean, Seb, Mateo, I mean, what are your experiences with the Pirates franchise? And, you know, like, and what was the last time you guys even watched, like, these sequels?
So the one thing I do want to say, I do want to share, I guess, like, a little bit of speculation as to why maybe the criticism for this movie was a lot kind of more pronounced than the first. And I do think part of that is what Chance was talking about. Like, Curse of the Black Pearl kind of dropped with, like, no expectations. Like, it was I think, like, it was kind of expected to be a flop at the time. Like, Johnny Depp was not like, Curse of the Black Pearl established Johnny Depp as, like, you know, box office action movie star. And so I think going into Dead Man's Chest, there were a lot more expectations than for this first movie, which was like nobody expected Johnny Depp to do that, you know, like, there was a lot of novelty to the first one, which I guess, like, kind of
the pleasant surprise factor.
But yeah, I watched Curse of the Black Pearl so many times. I had that movie on disc, like, from the beginning, you know, and I took that same Blu-ray and I fired it up like just a few days ago, and we watched Curse of the Black Pearl.
One of the first Blu-rays.
Like, it holds up. It's a blast. I didn't watch Dead Man's Chest or At World's End for a pretty long time. The first Pirates movie I actually saw was On Stranger Tides in theaters, and then I went back to Curse of the Black Pearl, and so I kind of, like, jumped around in a very strange order. And so by the time that I got to Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, like, you know, I was a little older, and so these movies, if you don't remember them, like, at least to follow along when you're like 12 years old, 13 years old, these movies have, like, the most convoluted plots imaginable. Like, there's, like, so many, like, threads, like, and I was just like, I was kind of getting lost in the sauce a little bit, and I did not really. I was definitely a little sour on both you know, Dead Man's Chest and At World's End. But at the same time, I also do remember a lot of the stuff that Chance was talking about. Like, and I was at the time, like, I think my reaction was, like, I was kind of, like, scratching my head, like, why is this in this movie? Like, this isn't in the first one. And I was not, like, it, like, particularly, like, all of, like, the weird, like, Freudian shit that it does, and, like, how suddenly, like, there's like kind of a one-off joke in the first movie of, like, okay, but, like, Jack Sparrow is a little bit, like, too into Keira Knightley, that they really run with in the second movie. Yeah, just a lot of that stuff. Like, as like a 13, 12-year-old, I was like, I don't know if I really care about this, but I feel like revisiting it will be interesting, especially because this is going to be probably the first time also that, like, I won't have like very early childhood trauma of when they changed Pirates of the Caribbean, the ride for Dead Man's Chest, when I was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
They projected Bill Nye's face, like Davy Jones's face, onto the mist.
Right.
Permanently etched in my mind, like one of my most powerful fear memories.
Yeah.
So like
That's a Florida classic. If you grew up in Florida, like that everybody has that collective memory.
Yeah.
Everyone has the inside out emotion, but it's just Bill Nighy, just like doing the dashboard of fear. Yeah.
literally.
yeah. So it's definitely gonna be an interesting rewatch. Especially like realizing that it's kind of a part one, but
oh, that's right.
Like I guess I just kind of want to get lost in the gore sauce a little bit.
Yeah.
and see like, because a lot of
sauce.
what I really remembered, a lot of what I liked on my rewatch of Black Pearl recently was just like a lot of the silliness is just, it holds up so well. It's so much fun. And so just seeing a movie that's a little more silly, can't go wrong with that.
I'm glad you mentioned like the expectations part of it because again, Pirates had the first one had like the pleasant surprise thing going for it. And for the second one, again, it's and people will always want like more of the same, right? And so for this one, again, the first one is very much so is in many ways like a very like family friendly. It's just like, let's go all see this like swashbuckling like Pirates movie. And from what Chance is saying, the second one is not concerned with that aspect at all.
It's not. And I think like something that's like worth remembering. I think Mateo brought up a good point about this in terms of like the way the movie was critically received and sort of like the weird distance between like that swashbuckling stuff in the first one, all the goofy shit in the second one, and like the idea this movie will be goofier than the first one, but it also takes itself much more seriously at the same time. Simultaneously, it's balancing both these threads and like
going for more.
I think that's something that we're not used to in American popular cinema specifically. I think it makes it more interesting that they cast Chow Yun-fat in the third one, which is that like if you watch movies from Hong Kong, if you watch movies from India, there's this idea that you can have like all of these dissonant parts create like a broadly entertaining and like extremely like self-reflexive whole. Like the movie can be commenting on itself and playing with your audience's expectations and playing different audience members at different times. And like that very much feels like what these movies are doing, whether it's on purpose or not, I'm not sure. I don't particularly care. But I definitely think like it has that sort of like weird broad sensibility that a lot of those like larger movies have from different markets.
Just from what Chance was saying there, I feel like there's like a weird trend with American audiences of like, oh, but it wasn't tonally consistent. And like I don't know if like there's always like has to be a through line of tonal consistency through every film, especially like in blockbusters. It's always something that's like brought up as a knock against films that like it didn't feel consistent with the rest of the film, or there was like a change that I didn't like. And it's I like this idea of maybe challenging that a bit. So I am looking forward to that aspect of it. But when it comes to personally going into the film, I rewatched Black Pearl as well just a couple nights ago. And that, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen any of the Pirates films. It's like one of those films and franchises that's just like you've kind of always watched. Like it's just always been in the brain, and I can't remember the first time I watched it.
Exactly.
It's always been back in the psyche. I'm pretty sure I watched like the first one on like VHS, similar to like Spider-Man 1 and 2. But that movie was better than I remembered. I can't remember if it was Chris or Mateo brought up that it was shot on film, which was like, really, really cool to see. Because there's just, I don't know, there's like a crisp look to that film that kind of shocked me while watching and just made it that much more engaging. It's just a film or a blockbuster that it felt storyboarded. It felt crafted before, the filmmaking of it. And obviously Johnny Depp, like kind of doing the Robert Downey Jr. before the Robbie Downey Jr. was just really fun to watch. I'm so excited going to this next one. The post-credit scene for the first Pirates is kind of weird with the monkey. I'm pretty sure, I don't even know if I can't remember that goes anywhere. But I'm not even sure why I checked to see if there was a post-credit scene, and I was like pleasantly.
This is news
surprised.
to me. Yeah, this is wait.
No, I know.
that shit is
it's a weird one.
insane.
I'm glad you mentioned the whole like it's like the tonally consistent thing because people love throwing that around of just they'll be like, oh, like that scene was so random, as if it wasn't like carefully considered or like intention or something like that. And I feel like for a movie like this,
Yeah.
we used this phrase last week. I feel like for something like this, it'll be much more so like again a feature rather than a bug. I had this written in my notes for this pre-watch, and we can talk about it more in the post-watch. But can we get a bolo on Keira Knightley? Like, what? Like, where has she
Yeah.
gone? Like, since these movies? Like, I talk
No,
about someone.
I've been crying for help.
Yeah.
I watched Pride and Prejudice, and I got so desperate. I was like, put her in the MCU just so we can see her again. I don't care.
No,
I'm so
bro.
desperate.
Keira Knightley's in France now. She's in like Luc Besson movies and shit. And like, let me tell you, those
Oh, so
things,
she won.
dang.
She won at life.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I don't know if winning at life is being in Luc Besson.
and Luc
movies. I don't
Besson.
know if
Yeah,
I want
I
to
don't
be
care.
within. I don't
She's
know
in
if I want to
France.
be within like a mile of Luc Besson. Honestly,
I'm
I'm-
sorry.
I don't wanna be in-
I was just saying that she's in France.
Yes.
I respect that part.
That's fair, but like also, I mean, just a quick game for the folks. Can any of you name us that isn't Pirates 5? Can any of you name a single film she's been in since The Imitation Game in 2014, which she got nominated for? And it's not like she's only been in 3. She's been in plenty of movies since 2014. Can any of you name a single one she's been in? I will not. Believe me, I will not hold it against you if you can't, because I would not have been able to. Like that is.
I
Oh,
feel like
no.
I'm cheating because I know the answers to this question. But like,
yeah.
has anybody seen Colette? Anybody watch Colette? Nobody watched
No.
Colette. Colette
Nobody saw
sucked.
Colette. Yeah.
Colette stinks.
Again,
Let's go back. She's
I'm
great
a-
in that first movie. So I'm also like one of the things that like people have a lot of nostalgia for in like the original 3 movies is the Orlando Bloom Keira Knightley like couple.
Oh,
And,
the
like,
charisma is crazy.
They
Yeah.
got rid of them like in the later movies. Like
Yeah.
it was like kind of like baggage eventually. Like, and I guess kind of like hard to take those characters any further than okay, well they're just together
Well,
now.
like they're already in love at the end
Yeah.
of the first one.
Yeah.
It's hard to carry that for
The way
several
they
films.
play that in Dead Man's Chest is interesting, though. I will say.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
They
yeah.
take it in interesting directions, and it's also extremely funny because I don't consider Keira Knightley or Orlando Bloom to be like particularly charismatic actors. Like
Yeah.
they're very much like pretty faces, but like their chemistry is genuinely insane sometimes.
It's
like,
good.
yeah.
It's
Then,
really good. in that
Y'all
first
remember
movie.
that one scene from Outworld's End? That shit is
Oh yeah.
nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about. That's all.
this is why we play.
But no, like
Exactly.
We haven't mentioned him yet. Stellan Skarsgård's in this movie.
Dude, Bootstrap.
I was
Bootstrap
saving
Bill.
that. I was being quiet about Bootstrap. Bootstrap is like my guy. Oh my god, the
can't
cast
wait.
for all
I'm
these
so
movies is
gassed.
insane.
No,
But,
deep
like,
benches.
Okay, you know what? I
Mhm.
had this on my chest, and I was gonna save it, but you just like threw all patience out the window. So you know how all of the crew of the Flying Dutchman is like CG, like really good
Yeah.
CG.
Yeah.
Bill, like literally, Bootstrap Bill, Stellan Skarsgård's character is entirely practical. Everything you see on his body is real,
Right.
which is incredible.
Yeah.
He looks amazing.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited for
God,
that.
his performance is amazing.
Yeah, like just seeing like how they rotate the cast coming into Dead Man's Chest, because these movies
Mhm.
kind of like every movie it's like let's get another good actor here. You know, like
Oh yeah.
we won't stop.
There's
You know?
No,
So
and
let's,
then,
infested with dudes. Yeah, and a lot of
Yeah.
bad
like
guys.
Tom
Yeah.
Hollander. Tom Hollander is a great dude. Y'all know who y'all know Tom Hollander? Tom Hollander from In the Loop, Tom Hollander from Mission Impossible. He is genuinely great in these movies. He's so funny. He has one of the most iconic scenes in the entire trilogy. That like you remember the scene of the guy like walking down.
yeah,
like, the
no, I
stairs
know
and the
that. I
shit?
know
Oh,
that's
yeah.
him.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's Tom
yeah.
Hollander. He's
Yes,
in
yes.
this one and he's in the next one, and like no one even talks about him.
And he's
Yeah.
good at that from what I remember. No, yeah, like everyone
He's
comes to play.
great.
No one's like
No
is
one
throwing in
slacks
the
off in
towel.
these
Yeah,
movies.
no one's throwing it in, and that's the best part. Like everyone's just going for it. And he mentioned the like everything on Bootstrap Bill is real. It's like and Seb mentioned how it's like like the first one was like aged better than he thought, and that's the thing. It's like when they're using the like absurd amounts of money, like Scrooge McDuck money they're getting to do everything like as like in camera, like as much as possible, and just to do these things. Like I think so much about that freaking quote. That's like when he was like, yeah, like back in the like in artists making movie like sorcerer type. He's like, if you wanted to like film something remarkable, like you had to do something remarkable. Like you had to like do some like
Ooh.
huge feats of like of mankind to get these awesome things on screen. And it sounds like, it's like
I
the
love
Pirates
that.
films were trying to do that.
Oh.
Yeah.
They Fitzcarraldo'd some shit. People got hurt making these movies. Like there was a lawsuit. Like the stunt team got injured doing some of this stuff. Like, because it's crazy. You have people like falling down, masks getting blown up, all this shit, and like you're like, oh wait, that's like an actual guy. Like that's some dude like screaming right now. It's that Hong Kong sensibility. I'm telling you.
I'm gonna sound so toxic by saying they did something right.
The Hong Kong sensibility. That's like we play. Okay, that might be a fun game to play in the post watch. It's like what point do we think someone got most gravely injured? Like watching this, and you can even pick out a dude. Be like, I know that guy was in the hospital. Like we can go.
I know dude's
I hope
hospital
he's
bill was
okay.
up there.
I hope he got his mill from Disney. You know?
I hope he goes
No one
bad.
Disney.
But like that's one of the best parts about Fury Road, though, is you're watching that movie and then like using javelins between cars, and you're like, somebody definitely died. Like making this film, like somebody had to have died, and we didn't hear about it. And that's when you know you're watching the cinema. Like that's when you know you're being treated right.
We love stuntmen and we care about their safety.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I
we
didn't
do.
want to throw them under the bus.
No.
I've been rooting for
listen, this
stunts
is,
in the Oscars forever.
Yeah, we
Shout out Sammo Hung stunt team.
Let's go. No, yeah, but we did not anyone actually endangered.
One last thing I wanted to compliment the Pirates franchise on is that their ability to build towards like an incredible third act. That was something that I did not give the first one enough credit for, but on my rewatch, I was like this is like really solid world building. And then when you get to the third act, where you're like, it's like this giant fight where it's cross-cutting through all those locations. You got this fight with like, the sword fights between like in the moonlight, they're skeletons, and then they're back to normal. And there's really great cross-cutting through CGI and normal practical stunts. And I feel like they only escalate it in the future films and just make it bigger, grander, more intense. And I just can't wait for what this one has in store.
Absolutely, yeah. And I don't know if there's an audience for this next comment, but like as a fan and enjoyer of the Kingdom Hearts video game franchise, that's part of the reason I am hyper familiar and have heavily rinsed that first Pirates movie, because you guys actually forgot that Donald and Goofy are in a cut of Curse the Black Pearl. I'll send you a YouTube link to the version I'm watching. It may not look as good as you remember, but it actually
You there.
And the Pirates sequence on Kingdom Hearts is why the game had to say mild blood on the back, because when they cut the hands and put the blood on the coin, in the onto the pile.
I vividly remember this. I remember being in downtown Disney as a child, and they would have those screens out in the stores advertising video games, and they had like the Pirates of the Caribbean, Kingdom Hearts, like cutscenes, like on the screens in downtown Disney. And I was like, they got Donald and Goofy in that shit.
Yeah, they got them to sign on for this one. That's crazy. Donald casting spells on skeletons. I'm like, is this canon? Is this is the director's cut? I think it's Gore would put Goofy in one of these movies. Is the thing like?
No, Gore would go nuts. Gore always goes nuts. I'm counting. I'm looking at my watch, and it says it's time for a Cure for Wellness postscript. Like I'm just,
bro. I as a throw, someone mentioned Dane DeHaan on a recent podcast, and I was just like, it's coming. Cure for Wellness.
Dane DeHaan,
we're Dane heads.
In that movie.
We're Dane heads here.
Dane DeHaan and Dumb Money. Anybody seeing that thing? Anybody seeing Dumb Money?
we're a Dane could have been in these movies. Dane could be in a Pirates movie.
He's gonna guest one day here.
Dane on the pod.
Dane DeHaan on the pod.
No, dog.
Listen,
if we
gotta have Dane DeHaan postscript.
Dane DePod.
Dane DePod.
If I reached out and was like, we're covering Cure for Wellness, like, come on and speak your piece, King. Like, he would probably like it'd be like, it's like before I exit out of the DM, it'd be like Dane active now in the chat. Like he would probably like be there. Like he would be in that.
We just summon him.
That movie got done so dirty.
No, I'm like, okay, like, and I was telling them, and maybe I got this. I was telling Seb and Mateo, I'm like, I would. It might be the last postscript ever, but like a Lone Ranger pod would go hard. But those are some fraught waters. Fraught water.
Those listen, the waters we're entering now are so dangerous. Like
Things
when
get
you see the
sticky
opening of
already.
this movie, you will get scared. It is Gore needs to fix his heart. Gore needs to go on a little like journey and like fix whatever he has going on. But when you touch the Lone Ranger, it gets so fucking scary.
We'll talk about the Lone Ranger, and we'll get the black dot on our hands that Johnny Depp has. We'll be imbued with something like that.
We're going to jail, boys.
The movie jail.
But nice knowing you
come
all.
back. Yeah, get the scary
Hi-yo Silver.
Okay, that being said, I'm amped right now for this rewatch. And also, real quick, I have not rewatched Curse of the Black Pearl yet. Like, is that necessary for the enjoyment of Dead Man's Chest? Would you like full-throatedly recommend rewatching the first, or are you like this? You can just dive right into Dead Man's Chest.
Just fucking go for it. The first one is like so like where it ends up. The lore from the first one doesn't matter at all. Genuinely, I almost think this movie is best enjoyed in a vacuum, like without World's End and without Black Pearl. I think like it's best like when you view it as its own thing. Because if you keep thinking that like if you're waiting for payoffs that you think are going to pay off in the next movie, I think it doesn't lend you to appreciating how genuinely bizarre the climax of this movie is. The last 20 to 30 minutes are such a weird choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's an even better choice when you're like, and this is just how it ends. This is just how it goes.
Yeah.
And this is not to say I don't love World's End, because I do love World's End. But this movie's crazy.
I feel like Chance is hinting at maybe why it was so like, mixedly received. That like it was just so unconventional in its climax.
Of wanting payoffs, the way it sets up, all these things.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay.
Part 1 type syndrome.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That being said, we will see you all on the other side.
Captain Sparrow!
Elizabeth, these clothes do not flatter you at all. It should be a dress or nothing. I happen to have no dress in my cabin.
We're looking for this.
The chest of Davy Jones.
What is in the chest?
Jack Sparrow! Oh, bugger.
And we're back. And I'm just gonna be frank. I finished my viewing of this movie about 30 minutes ago. My fingernails are still tingling. I'm still rocking right now, fellas. Let's just dive right into the conversation. We'll start with general thoughts, and then we'll kind of move through the plot as the kind of engine for this conversation, just kind of top to bottom to kind of guide our way. But fellas, let's just start with Mateo. Mateo, how are you feeling about Dead Man's Chest?
Okay, so hot off the wheels of the Curse of the Black Pearl viewing, I feel like natural way to like talk to say is like compare it to how much I like the first one. And I think where this movie like definitely does get kind of, the plot is kind of like a little all over the place, like, and you definitely feel where the movie was written after it was being made almost. But at the same time, this movie is such a blast, and I enjoyed it actually more than the first one. Like,
let's go. Come on.
There's so many moments that you can point to that are phenomenal, like just little bits and pieces. But the overall tone and the demeanor that this movie has and what it has to say is like so mean-spirited that I almost want to compare it to Alien Covenant. Like, these are two movies that are like just, so cruel.
They see the worst in people.
Yeah, like they see the worst in people, but like it's a fascinating outlook. It's just a fascinating chapter in our, kind of era of unlimited Disney money movies. And yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal. What more can I say?
Let's go. Seb, how about you?
I did not expect to like this movie as much as I did. I mean,
Come on. Come on.
off similarly, I had watched Black Pearl for the first time in a long time, probably like 8 years or something. And that movie, I think no one's really going to argue that movie is like tighter than this movie, but that does not mean it is better.
Come
And
on. Come on.
And I think
Let's
the reason
fucking
why is
go.
because this movie leans into all the strengths of like the Pirates franchise. Like everything that makes this franchise great, this movie leans right into it in the best ways possible. And like particularly like the chaos of set pieces and just letting it completely unravel and unfold. And like Mateo said, it's a blast. Like you're never bored watching this movie. Like it's always doing something interesting, whether it's with the camera, the acting. I mean, even the script, where while at times I have no idea what they're talking about, like other times I'm like I don't know, like it's just fun back and forth. Like there's some good script moments in here that I can actually appreciate. So I don't know. I mean, from the moment the movie started to the moment the movie ended, I'm just so glad that I like hopped back on the Black Pearl or the the Pirates ship got to experience this ride again, because I don't know if I would have without this podcast. Like I'm just so grateful. Like thanks thanks for the ride.
I mean, wow, that just fills my heart. I the listeners can't see it, but Chance is backflipping right now. Actually hearing that, he's
I'm vindicated. I'm so vindicated. all of my years in the trenches.
I love that. And no, yeah, like kind of like what you were saying, Seb. It's like I realized how good of a movie this was is when it's during, and we'll get to it later, but when we get to the scene when like Will challenges Davy Jones to the dice game. I don't know how that dice game works, but I was locked in. I'm so there. Because again, it's
Perfect.
like it doesn't matter if you're not like, catch on to every single like plot mechanic. It's like gore keeps you like on that wavelength. And like, again, that's all that matters. Like that's all that matters. And so personally, like again, like I'm hot off this rewatch, and like my first takeaway was like because again, like it was middling reviews from critics at the time, but like, I'm like, I don't know how you like after watching that film and after watching as electrifying as a third act as that is, I truly can't imagine going back home and thinking I'm going to type a negative review about this film. Like I don't know, I don't know how you get from A to B of watching
or just like shrugging your shoulders.
Like
how does that happen?
No, see, like I don't. They must have walked out of the movie like 5 minutes in or something. Like I just don't know how you get there, because it's just so life-giving. Just the filmmaking, it's so energizing. I love it so much. And one other thing I want to say is that something I love about this movie, I was thinking about this during like the cannibal set piece. I was like, a lot of times in movies where like characters like within the film or within the universe are considered like legendary or like characters of myth or characters you tell the tale, like a Jack Sparrow, or even by the end of the franchise like a Will Turner, a lot of times it's like they'll get you to buy into like how legendary these characters are by like saying like, oh, that's the guy who like did something. It's like the most insane thing you've ever heard, just to meet like, again, to build the mythos of this character. They'll like something you like, you've never seen, you will never seen. They'll like, like they'll describe it to you. It's like, I mean, I know they show it in Solo, but like Han Solo, like he did the parsec run or he did the Kessel run in whatever parsecs, right? Like they just find something that sounds insane and impressive, and you're like, oh, it's cool. The thing about this movie, and I'm sure about all the Pirates movies, but especially this one, is that you're watching set pieces and you're watching like sequences that like, you're watching like almost the mythos being built. It's like, oh, like that was the time Jack Sparrow convinced an entire tribe of cannibals that he was like their god deity and somehow escaped. Like when you just describe like what happens in this film, it's like you're describing like legends and tales like as big as you might create to make someone seem like a myth and things, and like, but they are as cool as those legends. Like, does that make any sense? It's like
Oh yeah,
I really like this movie. Like, and again, so much I want to gush over about it, but Chance, how does rewatch treat you?
I mean, I don't know what to say. It's like it's coming home. I've been here since I was a child. I'm here again as an adult. And we're back on top, baby. It's $1 billion at the box office, and now it's like $1 billion in viewers' hearts.
Come on.
No, this movie. This movie is incredible. It's in like in a post Sid Field world where you have like all of these things you can pick apart about movies. Post CinemaSins, post post like modern film school. It's easy to look at this movie and go, it doesn't check this box, it doesn't follow this structure, this thing is confusing, therefore your audience can't be invested, therefore the movie is a failure. And Dead Man's Chest is just like this perfect, beautiful encapsulation of like, none of these things are true. All of these things you've been told about what makes a movie inherently good are wrong. You've been lied to. And like, if the movie is exciting, if there is craft, if there is, actual genuine artistry on display, it doesn't matter if there's like a perfect 3 acts. It doesn't matter if there's like proper setups and payoffs. It doesn't matter if like the logic of what's going on makes sense to you. You don't need logic to be viscerally invested in something. You don't need to believe that Jack Sparrow can be catching all of that fruit on the pole that he's stuck to. To like go, oh, I understand what's happening. This is awesome. You don't need to understand like how to play the dice game to understand the stakes of what's going on. You can be invested emotionally in like Will and his father's relationship and like the consequences of their like of what they're doing without having any idea of like what the fuck they're doing by saying like I have like 7 5s. Like what the fuck? Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you're so watching that scene and you're like, oh my god, if he's lying, he's so fucked. Like you see the shot of the dice and you're just like, Gore has you like in his hand. Like Gore is carrying you and you trust him. It's great filmmaking. It's the kind of thing that I think we're so unaccustomed to now when it comes to like going to see movies in theaters, which is just that no matter how ridiculous it gets, the hand of the filmmaker is so sturdy and so ever present that you will follow him anywhere, no matter where he is going. Verbinski is all more than any of the characters, more than the screenwriters, more than the mythology. Verbinski is present in every frame of this movie, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. It's extremely well said, and I fully agree. Yeah.
To piggyback off of that, I mean, at the beginning of this film, I mean, it starts like at an 11, and
yes.
I mean, you're just so to use a phrase that Chris has used, like this thing really moves, like that. That's what I was feeling at the beginning of this movie. But like to piggyback what Chance just said, like you're never feeling like it's losing control of the steering wheel because like the craft is like really, really solid or even great. Like something that stood out to me was like the lighting and composition and like not just like the set design, but just like on these actors is like immaculate.
Oh my god.
Like
it's
yes.
It's crazy. Like because we're talking about like just like the beginning of the movie, you're going back to the same location that has kind of been like in Pokemon terms, it's like the pallet town. It's like where you first start the journey.
Exactly.
And it's like kind of this like homey, Port Royal. It's like this homey, like friendly place. It's like the lighting is always warm in Port Royal. And then you come to it in Dead Man's Chest and it's raining and the troops are coming
green.
In and it's blue,
incredible.
Dark and green. It's ugly. Like that is the kind of like thing that Seb is talking about where like the lighting and just the composition like can just completely transform the tone and the feeling that you get from a location. Yeah,
it does.
It's incredible.
What Gore is doing here is so impressive just in terms of like the conciseness of his visual language. He's working with widescreen, which like as a format is not something that's incredibly suited to like the sort of like swashbuckling movies he's drawing from. A lot of those were shot in Academy ratio. And so he's finding these new compositions. But on top of that, he's dealing with scenes that haven't been written, that he's having to block as they go. They can't really storyboard all of these dialogue scenes because he can storyboard all the action scenes all he wants. But you go into it without a script, without knowing what each scene's going to be. And he's having to figure out this stuff as it goes. And so you end up with a lot of scenes that aren't shot in shot reverse shot, that aren't shot in these sort of traditional wides that you're used to. And he's getting so much mileage out of just like dynamic blocking and basic camera moves to tell you what's happening. I mean, I think of that opening, of course, with whenever Beckett arrives and he's handing out the warrants for arrest.
He's got his back turned to the camera, and someone takes off his cape, and he turns around dramatically.
Right. Come on. But it's also like, so you have the actual introduction of Beckett, where like they're coming in on the boats, and Beckett is on the horse on the boat, which, by the way, they did for real and took months of training for one shot. The screenwriters were upset. Like Elliot and Rossio were obsessed with having this in the movie, and Gore's like, "Fine, I'll do it." It's one shot, and it looks incredible. It's awesome. It's like a crazy way for him to appear. But like, that's how concise this movie is. You see that one shot of him on the horse on the boat, and you get this guy's entire deal immediately.
Yeah.
And the same is true for so many scenes where you're establishing dynamics. Like there's a scene later in the movie towards the very, very end where they're all going to the longboat, and the camera sort of dollies back, and it transforms from this sort of, like very dynamic shot of Gibbs and the rest of the crew running the longboat to like this shot of Elizabeth realizing that she is going to handcuff Jack to the mast. And you realize that he probably got all of that in one setup and shot absolutely no coverage because he didn't have the time or the resources to do it. And he's using that widescreen. He's getting all this information to you immediately. One shot, one and done. He's not wasting any time getting anywhere. And it's just like,
it's one of my favorite
from that
shots,
opening shot of the teacups with the rain coming into them. It's like, okay, I get it immediately. They're filled up, they're overflowing. Everything here is like off the rails now. The place you knew is gone. And like, this is also, shout out to Darius Wolski, the cinematographer of this film, and the cinematographer of Alien Covenant and Prometheus. Just tie it right back. Wolski is present right now. He's with us.
Holy moly.
He's doing
I'm shaking. I'm shaking. Oh, that's amazing. That was the dot we needed connected right there. That's amazing. And you're so right.
I want to shout out another shot that I thought was just like so well done. It was like there's an introduction where Elizabeth is trying to escape the prison. She's being ridden out in the carriage, and they stop. There's still a man standing on a bridge. And he's turned away, and you're like, oh, is he doing like some kind of dramatic like head turn? Is he going to turn around? And the camera like shifts, and it shows that he had already gotten stabbed.
That is so dope.
It was just, it's the best. Like I love that stuff.
Yeah,
and it reveals the hidden figure behind him who had stabbed him. Like, oh my gosh,
it's just simple setup too. It's one shot. It's one shot. It's that one beautiful like medium wide. And then like that's not even getting into like all of the more like expressive stuff Gore uses for locations. Like sort of like there's the torture island where you first meet Jack, and like all of that is insane. It's insane that that's in the movie because it has no reason to be there. There's no historical basis for it. It's just this like it's a torture island that's like out of a von Sternberg movie. It's like you're watching the opening of the Scarlet Empress where everybody's getting their eyes ripped out and shit. And there's just these crazy like 18mm lens shots of like guys in cages screaming. And like, oh, I get this place, this whole deal, and it's on screen for 10 seconds.
It's like the little like Hitchcock, The Birds, like people getting their eyes
exactly
and stuff. It's crazy.
It's crazy. And then you have like the awesome gag where like Jack is like in the coffin and the bird lands in the coffin. He just blows it to pieces. And feathers fly everywhere. That's awesome.
That's such an amazing because Jack Sparrow is such a mythos even after that one movie. And to introduce him like that is just so like it's just so perfect.
He just did some insane shit you will never see.
You're so right. And describing it's like, he hid inside of a casket which got tossed into the ocean, and then he blew a crow off of it, and then took the leg and rode his way back to the black.
It's like guys like all right, foot like bony foot.
We're freaking doing it. And like and again, it's like I love how after like a quintessential family night film, Curse of the Black Pearl, you have in the first 5 minutes people's eyes getting ripped out in Dead Man's chest. It's just like welcome to the show. We're freaking doing this. And so just going back, starting chronologically, just like at the beginning of this film, and like you were saying, Chance, like it so quickly, so efficiently, like with that teacup shot, or with the rain on like the sheet music on the stand that's like starting to fall off. And
what's so incredible about that shot? I'm sorry, I got carried. I was watching it. I'm like, I have to wonder if it was a little miracle or if they timed it so they could get that piece of sheet music to fly off right as they started to pan away.
No, yes.
It's so perfect.
Seriously, like them just hooting and hollering when they say action and it happens to fly away, and then like that's just It's the little things like that, and again, and so quickly in a couple shots, you get it. You're like, oh, okay, like this wedding has been upended. This place, like this, the vibe has shifted dramatically in Port Royale, to put it simply. And then immediately it's like Beckett arrives, and you feel like he's just always existed, like in this universe, and it's just
Yeah.
oh, it's like I know who this guy is. This slimy little like I know who this guy is, and you immediately like you can't take your eyes off him. And so yeah, so Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, their wedding is interrupted, right? And Lord Cutler Beckett, played by our freaking boy Tom Hollander. I almost just said Tom Holland. Is the curse casting of the East India Trading Company. He calls for the arrest of the two of them and like has their warrants, right? And then he kind of sets them up like for helping Jack Sparrow, escape Captain Jack Sparrow escape at the end of the last film. Cut to like what we were talking about, the torture island, right? And that's Jack Sparrow's intro for this movie. He escapes because he got like the cloth, just this like silk little, almost like screen wiper cloth, with the dead man's.
Yeah, I use that to clean my glasses out, guys. Like
Literally, it's a drawing of a key.
And again, it's like I don't need to know why it was in that place. I just know he has the cloth, so he gets that. He brings it back to the ship, and then that's where we find that his compass is quote unquote compass is just a fry, right? It's just,
We'll wait to open that bag of worms. I feel like
Yes.
we need to let that stay a little longer. But
so
No,
that's acting all yeah.
And I want to add before we get too far from that opening, because I
Yeah.
think it's easy to rag on the script of this movie because there really wasn't one. But I'll say some of the best table setting this movie does is when they're handing out the warrants for Will and Elizabeth. They also mention there's a warrant for James Norrington from the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, he resigned his commission. He got fucked up. And you're like, and you know immediately, oh, this shit's coming back. His ass is coming back. And that's like a beautiful way of setting up what they eventually do with Norrington in this movie, which is one of the best bits of character writing in the whole series. But great opening scene, great dialogue, great way of going, okay, just like this is a surprise tool that will help us later.
Yeah.
It's also so easy. It's also so easy to write a character off like that in a sequel and be like, okay,
so easy.
he's like the competing love interest, but now we have Will and Keira Knightley. It's like, we have Will and Elizabeth Swann now. It's like we can just wrap that up with a little bow.
And get out of jail free card. You're like, if we can abandon ship on that guy if we want to, yeah.
But I will say, I think, if I was negative on the script in my opening, I do want to say that the story beats, like the big story beats of this movie, are very clean.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the table setting and like how you connect the dots, it works really well. And I mean that opening scene, like it instantly like gives kind of like an interesting relationship to all the characters. Like it really upends the dynamic. And I think this is like an enduring theme of the movie, that like these like characters who like teamed up, and like, it's partially in the first movie where like, they're teaming up, but it's like kind of reluctant because they're in it for different reasons. But by the end of it, they're all like kind of friends. And this movie, it's like, it instantly kind of gives Will and Elizabeth, like, by separating them early in the movie and also giving them like kind of different motivations from Jack, like they kind of oppose each other now. And like it's a very like kind of ballsy move to get like your beloved franchise characters and then pit them against each other.
It's a great idea. It's why I referenced the Coen brothers in the pregame, because it's like you think about movies like Fargo or A Simple Plan or the TV show Fargo, a movie that is just riffing on the Coen brothers, where it's just like, let's take these characters and just shoot them in a million different directions and see how they collide. Like you're literally just trying to ram all of these things up against each other as hard as you can and see what comes of it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, no, that is one of my favorite things I really appreciate about this movie, is like you guys are saying, it's that totally, again, with these beloved characters after the first one, it's like, oh, I love Jack Sparrow, I went as him for Halloween. This movie is completely unafraid to like to blemish these people, to like show their flaws, to have them make like morally wrong decisions, which again sounds so simple, but like But again, nowadays it's just like everyone gets along in these movies, you know? Like there's no
Yeah.
conflict between like our main
No.
protagonists, like ever. And the fact that again they're pitting them against each other, like in
There's
these
like
debates,
one good person in this movie, and it's probably Will. Like he's like probably the
Yeah.
most decent human being in this movie, and
Yes.
that's like not even saying a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, and to have like Jack Sparrow, like
Maybe Elizabeth Swann's dad.
Oh yeah,
He's
he's
kind of a
pretty good.
coward. He's kind of a little coward.
Well, he tried to break her out of jail.
No, he did
was
his
nice.
piece, but like I think it's half measures. You know, I respect
Right.
where
but again,
Weatherby Swan is coming from, but he is and always has been a low T soy beta cuck. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're just
But no-
saying that he has a good heart.
No, yeah. Again, it's like these like they have like they have dynamics. They have not afraid to have like give these characters flaws, you know, and like that makes it. And again, like Jack Sparrow, like yeah, like you have him. Like I know he has his heroic moment, which is like such a cool thing at the end, but like yeah, you have him rowing away in the middle of the third act. Like he has like, and he's actively tricking and like he's
He's a
scene-
gaslighter in this
he's
movie. Like a straight up.
he's a gaslight gatekeep. Like he just gives away Walter. Like literally with David Jones, like, are you okay with sacrificing your friend like that? He's like, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. He's like,
It's
yeah.
just,
What are you
are you
about it?"
having a good time? Yes.
And then when they start just recruiting people to their death,
Oh
he's
my
like,
god, such a good scene.
great.
unbelievable!
the-
I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. Like this is
So
awesome.
evil. And the entire crew's like, okay, where are we getting these 99 souls from, Jack? And like they're all on board to just kill all these
There's
people.
no debate. Like they're like, man, like
It's awesome.
We're gonna get people from the absolute dregs of society on the
And it's
lowest
like,
rung
I've
of
always wanted
everything.
to sail the high seas since I was a boy, and it's like, this guy has no idea what's coming to him.
We're just like, I don't like. There's no difference between being alive and dead. He's like, you're in.
He's A plus. Like the only thing they're torn up about are like the logistics of getting these guys. Like there's no question. It's just
No,
it's
this movie's legitimately hilarious.
Yeah.
Like way funnier than the first.
no, like,
Absolutely,
it's a, as one might say, a romp. Like it's amazing. It's so continuing. Jack Sparrow then goes downstairs and is greeted by our introduction to Stellan Skarsgård. His Stellan Skarsgård's bootstrap Bill Turner, which I mean,
Wait, hold on. Before we go too far,
Yeah.
I do want to highlight something.
Mm.
Maybe my favorite character introduction in this movie, which is crazy because there's so many good ones. But I think my favorite character introduction is you have Gibbs. So this is cutting between. It cuts back before you see Jack Sparrow arrive on the Black Pearl. It just establishes that the Black Pearl still exists and Gibbs is on board.
Yeah.
And he's reciting the Dead Man's Chest poem.
Yes.
And the camera does
Which is
move.
another incredibly effective, like economical shot. It's just this one shot of Gibbs walking up the deck. You get like the full ship, he's coming up, and then he gets up to the camera, and it's this like incredible, like widescreen close up of Gibbs singing. And it's one shot. It's awesome.
That is like it's so gnarly and it's so atmospheric. Oh,
You know what's interesting though? There's like a nice blend of like really fast paced editing, which tells me they did a lot of coverage for certain sequences, and then there are those like economical shots where it's like they probably didn't shoot that much on that day or on that set, like. But that helps me feel like I'm in good hands because it's able to do both. It's not just one thing. So
right, there's a lot of latitude, and a lot of times what he'll do to kind of like get the pace going and not have to worry about continuity is a lot of sequences like that scene where they're signing up like the guys for the ship, or like the scene whenever Will's looking for Jack and he's interviewing people. It's just a series of people like talking to the camera in different locations, or a series of like objects and stuff just to kind of like get the pace going and not bog the production down. Like it's just this incredibly like competent, artful filmmaking where he's like, I'm gonna do as much with as little as possible, and it's great.
It's all with intent. Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, and like you're saying, Chance, like it's all very simple camera moves. Like he isn't like, he's not doing like the most bonkers, like formal stuff you've ever seen.
No.
But it's always interesting. It's always interesting to look at, and it's just. Yeah, again, this thing is like a textbook in so many ways, just for like filmmaking like this. But so you meet Stellan Skarsgård's character, which again, an instance of like this dude has a starfish on his face. Like it could have been like in the wrong hands. Like this character is like so silly, or maybe you can't take him seriously. But again, with gore and an an actor of like Stellan's capacity, like in
God.
his skill, he brings so much gravitas to it. Like
Maybe the best performance in any of these movies. I can say that for a lot of these things because there's a lot of great performances here, but Stellan, the heart he gives that character.
yes,
I'm not the biggest Orlando Bloom fan, but like Stellan sells that relationship, the father-son relationship.
Absolutely.
yeah,
Like it's just Stellan
so
in my
quickly,
opinion.
so quickly. Like
Yeah.
it has the setup and payoff of that entire relationship when Will's on the ship is pretty quick. Like it's not a lot of screen time, but when they're saying goodbye, I'm like, is there dust in this room right now? Like I'm like, I'm feeling this,
Yeah.
bro. Like
I mean, somebody like I saw somebody highlight this about Stellan's character, like, and you know, another major theme of this movie is like death and decay, and you know, and we touched upon that with like kind of like, you know, the degeneration of Port Royal, and you know, we'll touch on it more, like Jack Sparrow's fear of death, but like the death and decay, it's like so present in just like Bootstrap Bill's like his design and like his demeanor. Like he's like super pale, he's like he's constantly coughing up water, and
Great
it's hard to
detail.
look at. Yeah,
I'm in love with that part when they first introduce him, and whenever he opens his mouth to speak, the water just runs down his face.
And he's got like
God.
he's like munching on that, he munches on like that bug.
yeah.
Like it's so sad. Like everybody in this movie is just like dead, like sick,
like,
or dying
on death's door. Yeah.
Like he's really like he's so compelling, and yeah, like he, like you said, he could look silly. Chance, you said like the prosthetics, it's like, I mean, the visual effects are stunning. Like
yeah,
just what a perfect like portrait character. Like
absolutely.
And you know, credit to Elliot and Rossio for dreaming that guy up, and like and then, you know, the performance and the direction just gives that character so much more, because like really he's kind of just there to deliver exposition almost, but like he gets elevated, he becomes so much more. Like incredible introduction.
And they know where to put the exposition, because a lot of that stuff ends up falling on some of their strongest actors, because it's Stellan is Bootstrap Bill, Kevin McNally is Gibbs, and Tom Hollander is Beckett, and all of those guys can just chew a line up and spit it out. Like they all have this like dense exposition, but all of them have such great presences and voices and faces. I mean, that, like, you're there, you're listening, you're intent.
No, you're like,
we'll get to it. Also, Naomi Harris. I mean,
she's
my
got
God,
so what a
performance.
She's
the best one.
Unbelievable.
I mean, it's true. It's like, and I wrote this down, and I think there's something. I mean, I think now's the time to get into it. But the cast for this movie, from the top to the bottom, is just so exciting and dynamic. And not just in terms of like their ability to portray their given characters, but like creating a cast of so many characters with so many interesting looking actors. Like it's sort of this like Sergio Leone mindset of like, give me the most interesting looking guy you can find. Give me the weirdest face you can find. Give me the craziest voice you can find. Because every single time somebody's on screen, you're like, I've never seen anybody who like moves like this or like talks like this. And it's just so awesome. And like, because there's so many characters, there's so many different movies. Like we talked about it in the pregame, but the sort of tone and genre shifts throughout the whole thing. Whenever you're with Will or Elizabeth, it's a very different type of movie than when we were with like my favorite thread to follow, like Pintel and Rigetti, like the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Pirates of the Caribbean universe.
Yeah.
One of the two Rosencrantz and Guildenstern pairs, as Mateo pointed out to me, of the Pirates of the Caribbean universe. But no, it's these two like idiots, like of these pretty obscure character actors who were just given entire scenes with tons of latitude to just kind of go for it. They have banter about like pretending to read the Bible. You get points for trying. Like it's just, and they also like commentate on the action. They're like just back there, like watching scenes play out, going, "Well, he's doing this and he's doing this, and this is like purpose. What if we did this to advance the plot? What if we did this thing to advance the plot forward?" so you can keep watching this movie. It's crazy.
They're like it's like peak C-3PO R2-D2 vibes. Like,
Oh my
It
god.
is. I mean,
Perfect.
this is that Hidden Fortress, Star Wars, Hamlet type shit. Tom
Yeah.
Stoppard rolling over
That's
in his fucking grave. Is Tom Stoppard still alive? Hold on.
I think he is. I think he is alive.
He's old. If he's still alive, he's old as fuck. Let me
Yeah,
see what Tom
he has
Stoppard's
water
up to.
coming out of his mouth like Stalin. Yeah,
No, he's
Tom
alive.
Stoppard
He's
is
alive.
currently alive. He's 86 years old.
Let's
Tom
get him on the
Stoppard
pod.
rolling over in bed. Tom, if you hear this,
Go on the
Gore
pod.
Verbinski bit your shit, bro.
Bros on David Jones' crew for sure.
No, yeah, no. I think it was a scene with those two, when I was like, that's when I realized I was like, this movie has so many characters, but it's not. But it's great. It's like when even like your third point guard on your team is getting meaningful minutes. I'm like, how is this happening? Like, it's a deep bench, but again, it never buckles underneath the weight. Like I was telling the offline before this because I was coming up to the buzzer with my viewing of this movie, and so it was about the time when Jack puts the heart in the jar of dirt, and I was like, okay, like I'll let them know how much time I left in this movie just in case I'm a little late coming onto the pod, and I was like, it was a jump scare seeing that I thought I had like 90 minutes left. No, there was about 20 minutes of the film left, which I don't say as a pacing issue. I mean, like my attention was grabbed like the entire time, which I had more an eloquent way of saying that, but it's just just scene to scene to scene. It's just I'm invested in all of it, right? Again, just a testament to Gore, and back to what we were saying about when I love the way like you frame that chance of just like, yeah, like they know where to put the exposition, and it wasn't until you like said that until I realized like how much Skarsgård had to set up in that scene. Like he has to like. In that one scene, he has to essentially established like, well, one, like who Davy Jones is, like what his deal is,
Yep.
what Jack Sparrow's relationship to him is, and just like he sets pretty much the entire plot of the movie in motion in that scene. But
All
it
the
doesn't-
rules.
yeah, he sets the rules of the film in motion. But you don't feel it. Like the film just like brushes, like
No.
takes off that coat and puts on a new one so quickly and so effortlessly. And Stalin gets you invested. It's like, shoot, like this, like even if I don't understand like the mechanic, like Davy Jones worker mechanics, or what his union laws are, like, or something, like, or what exactly the black spot on the hand means. I'm like, I know that ain't good, and I know he's coming.
I don't think the Flying Dutchman crew is unionized, buddy. I don't think there's any protection for those workers.
That is the. I mean, like compared to like I feel like the crew on the Black Pearl with Barbosa, they were having fun.
They were having a good time.
No
Everybody
one
seemed
on the
happy to be
Dutchman
there.
is allowed
They
to
were
have fun.
I was
partying.
gonna say
No,
there's good
they're
camaraderie
cleaving
there.
flesh from bone.
Oh, I want to shout out the character thing though one more time because it's
Mm.
like world building can be kind of done in a lot of ways, and I think like Star Wars does it because it's like all the different planets and locations, and people like will like shout those out. But I think Pirates does an exceptional job of world building through like exceptional character building and like character writing and having performances that really match like their stature as like these living legends. And so whenever you visit a new spot and you're taught like with like Calypso or you're with Davy Jones, like you feel like the world is expanding because of the performances and the characters, not just like, oh, we're seeing a new ship, we're seeing like a new beach. Like that's not what interests us. It's the people, which is the best compliment I can give.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, no, 100%. And so after that scene, we then go back to Will, right? And that's when Beckett offers Will. He's like, hey, like, come go fetch me, like go fetch me Jack's compass, bring him back, and like, which will as a result, like, to convince Jack, it's like, we'll pardon him, and then like potentially we'll set you and Elizabeth free, right? That's the deal he makes. And then this is when like, and I can feel like the train was really picking up steam, like for me, once Will like sets out to start to find Jack, because I love the way they do that. Like, I was watching, my brother was in the room for the scene, and I love how he said, like, when he goes to, like, when it just becomes, like, okay, Will has to go just find Jack now, which, again, like, bro, like,
Yeah,
I can't just open Snap Map, like, he has to go find Jack, like, who knows?
great
And
montage.
it's very, like, it's like sneaky Scorsese-esque, the way you have these, like, random citizens of this world.
Oh
almost,
yeah,
like,
the editing.
ta-
Yeah.
like,
It is.
talking into the camera. It's like Goodfellas or something like that, of just being,
No,
like, of just
it's
giving their
so
tale.
dynamic.
And I love the way they
And
did
like,
that.
And I think it's so easy to skip over the scene, but I think one of the scenes I want to talk the most about is actually that scene where Beckett makes Will Turner that offer.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because it's a very it's not a very flashy scene
Mhm.
formally. It's not very it's just kind of like, okay, here are the stakes for you, Will. Here are the rules that are going to apply moving
Mhm.
forward. But it's like this scene establishes a few things. One of which is how obscenely fucking expensive this movie is, because they walk outside on the veranda and they're just like raising a clock face up because they can.
Thank you.
Because Gore has this
Yes.
fucking widescreen like frame, and he's like, well, I can fit Will and Beckett on the left side. Then I can put a ship over here. And then I'll put a whole clock face over on the right side of the frame, because why the fuck not?
We're
Like, no
building
one's
Big
gonna
Ben in the
stop
background.
me. No,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's like, but not only that, the clock is acting as this like symbol for like what Beckett is talking about, like, you know, the time of pirates is going to end, like their time is running out. And it's like, so we have the giant clock face, which is symbolizing the way Beckett is changing Port Royal, the way the world is changing, the fact that time is literally running out for all of these people. And also, we're doing the Wild Bunch. The plot of this series is now the plot of Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. Like,
But it's
and
like-
it is. And you watch at World's End, you're like, holy fuck, I'm watching a really, really long version of the shootout from The Wild Bunch.
But like it's great. Like that scene is actually fantastic because
Yes.
again, more expo dump from our goat Tom Hollander.
Yes,
But
sir.
also
The fucking good.
also just like you said, the clock tower. You mentioned the clock tower bit, and like
Yes.
part of that is also like this character kind of represents like the like transition from like this kind of like more like classical based world into like we're moving into like industrialization and efficiency.
It's global
and
capitalism. Like,
and
the story of this movie is the expansion of global capital.
but like it's fantastic because like there's one line in there that's just amazing where he's like, honor is no longer the currency
The
of the realm.
currency of the realm.
Yeah.
Currency
Is the
of the realm.
currency of the realm. I have that shit right now. That shit's so awesome.
I wrote that line down because it's like it's such an interesting like there's like so many moments in this movie where you have characters who are kind of like faced with a choice to like kind of like oppose each other and like all try to like come out on top or cooperate, and it's like you have like the push and pull of like the sort of like kind of like individualist like mercantile mindset and like this like, you know, kind of like older like chivalry code of honor that they could follow and like team up and work together for a greater good. And it's like that's such a good like push and pull to have in your Pirates movie.
so
It's like
good.
it's so rich. Like there's no reason this movie has to be that rich and like full of like meaning.
There's no reason.
But it is.
And like in my,
It's all right.
I think I know I've written hard for these movies, and I'm sure at least you, Chris, probably looked at my older reviews for this movie on Letterboxd, both of which were me talking about how insane it is. The plot of like the Gore's Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy is like a bunch of like, you know, criminals and like people that are subjugated by like monarchist society opposing the expansion of global capital. Like these movies are like very directly about like capitalism, like the early forms of like industry and like the social reorganization that capitalism brings about. And that stuff is there in this movie, and it's there whenever you know, Jack is there with the cannibals and he picks up the tin and it has the East India Trading Company brand on the bottom.
Yeah.
That like there's nowhere is left untouched by the expansion of the system. And that goes even more insane in the third one, which I don't get too much into, but the fact that like starts in Singapore is like the politics of that are wild. It's like a wild choice politically, because like this is like immediately pre-opium wars. And like the implications that has for all of these people, and like the way that this mode of like making money would disappear. Because you another one of the perspectives you get in this movie is like trade ships. Like there's a the ship Elizabeth stows away on, and that Will later ends up on. It's a trade ship. It's there, and they're talking about how they can no longer actually perform their business because the East India Trading Company has a monopoly over every port except Tortuga, which they refuse to go to because it's a pirate port. It's illegal.
Yeah.
And like, they didn't have to do that. They didn't have to include that. And it's fucking
Literally.
psychotic of them to explicitly go about like, we're going to add another layer of subtext. And it's like, isn't it weird the way like, you know, capital works, the way like industry changed everything. it's kind of like, like it's like watching The Killer when he goes to the Amazon Dropbox. It's like,
this we quickly detour for 90 minutes of The Killer talk, and then we circle back to Dead Man's Chest.
Oh, I was watching this movie today, and I turned to Craig, and I'm like, we were watching The Killer again last night, and the way Fincher was, I'm like, no.
We can't do this now. We can't do this now. No, I mean, you're so right, and thank you for slowing me down and revisiting that scene, because that is we're talking about, and all these things. Yeah, like they walk out into that balcony, and you see, like, again, like there's so much just real movement going on in the background. Like you have the clock moving, you have them boarding ships, and like in a film nowadays with just volume tech that are green screen and have it just for like very basic scene dressing. But that's stuff, and Gore again through things like that, but again, like using the money, putting the money on the screen.
Money. Yeah, Gore had Disney fuck you money, and that will never exist again. Disney fuck you money isn't real anymore.
Yeah. And by putting the money on the screen, and also through, like you were saying, like having commentary on subject matter like that in a way that, again, like is just so fearless, it adds so much texture to this film, right? And like you said, Mateo, no reason being this rich, like it could, like there's like, some people would have just wanted to like give Jack Sparrow the Baby Yoda treatment and be like, oh, this thing works, like let's just lean into like Jack's silliness. That's what people like. And it's just so much less interesting.
It's not like they don't lean into the silliness.
Oh no. but as in like they make that the movie, It's like, it's just like, let's just
that's
follow
what
Jack.
On Stranger Tides is. On Stranger Tides is, let's just let Jack run around, and we're all gonna go, oh, we all love Jack Sparrow.
But even like the stuff that Jack is doing in this movie is just like utterly like entertaining.
Oh
like,
no, absolutely. I'm not saying there aren't Jack hijinks. It's just like, it's the novelty.
It's more than that.
It feels so much more meaningful, and like it's not just
a utility to it.
It's not just watching Jack talk his way out of scenarios for 2.5 hours. Like there's so many other like interesting moving parts, right? And so, so we have that
scene of scenarios with Jack.
Speaking of scenarios with Jack, so Will, and I love the way this is done too. It's not like we see Jack get tangled up with these cannibals, and then we see Will be like, oh, now Will's gonna join. I love how you just follow from Will. You see Will, he finds the Black Pearl. You're figuring out, like, unraveling this mini mystery with him, and then he stumbles. And like I see this before, I started laughing so hard when I just see Jack just sitting on that throne. We're just like, it's so absurd, but so
the eyelid thing. Yeah, the eyelid.
Oh yeah!
Oh my god,
it's amazing, and like that whole set's amazing, and they're just like, and like they know they can do whatever they want. I'm like, oh yeah, like at that point, the movie's just going for it, and so it has like the whole set piece with the cannibals, and then Will gets taken away, and then gets taken into like the like basket prisons, just
made out of the bones of dead crew members, which is awesome.
I didn't connect that dot. That's
because they ate. It's the bones of the other crew members that they ate already.
Yes,
of the Black Pearl.
Yeah, Gibbs.
I realized that
these cages were built after we got here, and like this is another great scene. Is like as they're trying to get out of these cages and they're climbing up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Another like just like an actor that's in the movie for like 5 minutes. One of the other crew members from the Black Pearl, it's in the competing cage as like Gibbs and Will does this amazing hand gesture when he's telling them to quietly keep climbing, where he just goes like. Points his finger up in this like dramatic way, and I'm like, that's just a guy. They got a cool guy for this like 2-minute role.
I love that. Yeah.
Let me say, for context, like this is the scene where they basically plan on escaping by like starting to swing these prisons that are like suspended on rope back and forth.
I mean, what a team building activity.
Again, like I said. It's the like selfishness versus cooperation coming into play, where they have to like basically work together to get onto the wall and start climbing.
Yeah. It's a great set piece.
I mean,
crazy episode of The Amazing Race. Yeah.
When you
or Survivor.
When you realize,
when
you realize what they're gonna start doing, like when the germ of the idea comes in, it then cuts to like the wide of the two like prisons, and the music choice from Hans is so funny. He's just like playing this like goofy waltz as they're like starting to swing back and forth. It's so
Best.
funny. And like you have like then you have the shot that's just straight onto their faces, like it's pointed directly at the characters swinging towards the wall, and they're
It's
like
like
they have their
wide
arms like
glimpses.
stretched out, they're like like trying to grab the vines, and then you see them swing back
No.
again, like
And like Gore went out of his way to get those shots. They extended those shooting days because Gore kept going that we need these close-ups to sell this scene. They were
it's
hard
so
as fuck
right.
to get.
the
And they look
slapstick is
incredible. They're worth it.
incredible. It's so unbelievably
Yeah.
funny.
No, there's some Buster Keaton shit in this movie.
Yeah,
There's some shit like Buster Keaton's just like his corpse is smiling right now.
Yeah.
there's some Jackie Chan stuff in this movie.
Oh yeah, there is. Hey, that stuntman count I was watching, somebody is dead, bro. Like,
Thank you, bro. When that ball took that first tumble, I was just
I mean, that's
no,
not,
I was
whenever
like, bro,
Jack, whenever he's attached to that pole and they have to have somebody like get unraveled from the rope.
yes,
Oh yeah.
Fuck.
unbelievable. Like again, there are many moments where I'm like, yeah, someone's dead. Someone's dead.
One
Like,
more,
no question.
one more quick, a little connection. You know, 'cause I'm doing my connections here today. So you know, Orlando Bloom is of course in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Quick Lord of the Rings connection here, which is that the stunts were partially organized by and performed by Salah Baker, who plays some of the Uruk-hai in Lord of the Rings, but also plays the Brute in David Fincher's The Killer.
Yo,
So
we're so up right now. This is
we're up.
a
Did you
chance
know
that's
that
like a
all
cork
good
board with red
movies-
lines on it.
all good movies.
You
were made
can't
by the
see it;
same
it's right
people.
behind my computer, and I'm just like,
And Mateo's so right. There are about 50 people making all the good movies. Like these are like
there literally are.
there's a small concentrated.
No, he definitely deserves that shout out because he's been just working his ass off doing some of the greatest stunts ever for years and years.
I mean, hell yeah.
And he's just incredible.
The other great little bit is in that climbing scene, once they finally reach the side of the cliff,
Yeah.
and then Will says, you know, like, all right, everybody, like, we're all in this together, and then like somebody in the other ball is like, well, actually, I mean, we could crew the pro with like probably like 6 guys tops, and like and then they start racing each other, and it's like, again, like, it's the movie like taking these characters that you want to like be together and like be friends and making like pitting them against each other, making them enemies. Like,
It's the best. It takes full
every
advantage of,
man
like,
for himself.
pirate,
Like,
the pirate idea. Yeah.
No, yeah, and then the way these like set pieces that may have like a very like simple, like again, like a German of an idea origins, just like like suspended like ball prisons, you know, just like that's it. Which quick detour that it, like speaks to the just like the imagination and like
Oh my
and
God,
the execution of the film is when you can say such a simple phrase and people know exactly what you're talking about, like or what scene you're talking about. You're like, oh, like ball prisons, or just like, oh, like dice, you know, like it's just
The big wheel.
the bit. through trembling breath, big wheel like that. We will get there, but again, there's so many great images and so many great ideas that constantly evolve. Like you're saying, like it's like, oh, let's add another wrinkle of like now they're racing each other going up the cliff. Like it's just it's so amazing. And then I love that you have like one crowd of antagonists, but then 2 different parties. If we're having Jack Sparrow as a different party trying to escape, but the antagonists like are constantly going back and forth of like who they're chasing, and it's just this amazing like it's like 1 cat 2 mice type of thing, you know, of just like of them trying to get away. That set piece is awesome. So yeah, so like Will's team, you know, there's like someone on the bridge, and we see the other ball, you know, the one without like the characters we like in it, you know, they're climbing up, they fall to their death, and so it's like, okay, like, you know, raise the stakes a little bit, they keep climbing up, they make it, but then like one thing leads to another, and they start tumbling down the hill in this ball prison, right?
that's the there's a Jackie Chan movie that does that, and I have to wonder if he was inspired, because it's like the cold open of this like one Jackie Chan movie where
Operation Condor.
Operation Condor.
It's pretty mediocre, but it's the identical bit, like the hamster ball gag.
Like he's like he's like, all right, I need to get away from these people, so he just gets in a large hamster ball and just tumbles down a cliff, and like in the wide shot you see Jackie Chan in that ball, and it's like, this movie's kind of doing a similar thing, like
It is.
because like it's like those bounces that the ball takes down the hill are gnarly.
Yeah.
They're
John
rough,
Wick
and
steps.
you see
Yeah.
No, you see those
John
motherfuckers ragdolling in there.
No.
And the same is
yeah.
true for that Jackie Chan movie. And it's like there's a lot of stuff that's like so directly taken from like bits like that. Like it's all about like the feeling those hits. And I think there's also like that sort of like cartoon logic to like the one group of antagonists that have to run back and forth. They can't
Yeah.
just split up. They all have to run back and forth. Because it's like, you know, you go to like Mouse Hunt, like Gore Verbinski's like first movie, which in my opinion is genuinely one of the great debut features of all time.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched Mouse Hunt, you have to watch Mouse Hunt. But it's this sort of like extreme awareness of these are the players, these are the stakes, these are the ways we can change them, and these are the ways we can make every single shift hit as hard as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And like whether that's with like 2 guys, 1 mouse, or if that's like a crowd of hundreds. It's all about just like moving your chess pieces around to inflict maximum damage.